Sarah Martinez had dreamed of serving her country since she was 12 years old, watching her father polish his army boots every Sunday morning. 23 years later, she stood at the entrance of the Naval Special Warfare Training Center in Coronado, California, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and determination. The salty ocean breeze carried the distant sounds of rigorous training exercises, and she knew this moment would change everything. The accident had happened 8 months earlier during a routine training exercise at Fort Benning. A malfunctioning rappelling rope had sent her plummeting 30 feet to the rocky ground below, shattering her left leg in 3 places. The doctors said she was lucky to walk again, let alone continue her military career. But Sarah wasn't interested in luck. She was interested in proving that dedication and skill mattered more than perfect physical condition. Her commanding officer, Colonel Harrison, had initially resisted her request to transfer to the Navy's Special Operations Assessment Program. The conversation in his office had been tense, filled with concerns about liability and precedent. But Sarah had prepared for this moment, presenting medical clearances, performance evaluations, and a detailed plan for how she would adapt her training methods. Her academic scores were in the top 5%. Her marksmanship was exceptional, and her strategic thinking had impressed every instructor she'd worked with. The titanium rod in her leg was barely visible beneath her uniform, but the slight adjustment in her gait was unmistakable to trained eyes. She'd spent months in physical therapy, not just recovering but pushing her body to new limits. Her physical therapist, a former Marine named Rodriguez, had become both mentor and tormentor, designing exercises that would prepare her for the grueling demands ahead. As she approached the administrative building, Sarah noticed a group of Navy SEALs gathered near the training compound. Their conversation stopped as they saw her approaching, their eyes immediately drawn to the subtle but noticeable way she favored her right leg. She could feel their assessment, the quick calculation of whether she belonged in their world of extreme physical and mental challenges. The morning briefing was scheduled for 800 hours, and Sarah arrived 15 minutes early, a habit ingrained from years of military service. The briefing room was sterile and functional, filled with metal chairs arranged in precise rows facing a podium where their instructors would outline the weeks ahead. She chose a seat in the middle section, close enough to demonstrate engagement but not so forward as to appear overeager. Other candidates began filtering into the room, each carrying themselves with the confident bearing of elite soldiers. There were former Rangers, Marines, Air Force pararescue specialists, and current Navy personnel seeking to join the SEAL teams. The diversity of backgrounds was impressive, but Sarah noticed she was one of only 3 women in a group of 47 candidates. The whispers started almost immediately. She caught fragments of conversations, comments about quotas and political correctness, speculation about whether standards were being lowered. Some candidates were more direct in their skepticism, their eyes lingering on her leg with obvious doubt. Sarah had anticipated this reaction and had prepared herself mentally for the challenge of proving her worth not just once, but continuously throughout the program. Lieutenant Commander Blake entered the room with the sharp precision of a career Navy officer. His weathered face bore the marks of decades in special operations, and his reputation for demanding excellence was legendary among the candidates. He surveyed the room with calculating eyes, taking measure of each person who hoped to earn the right to serve in America's most elite military units. The initial briefing covered logistics, expectations, and the sobering statistics of previous classes. Only 12% of candidates typically completed the full program, and the physical and mental challenges ahead would test every aspect of their character and capability. Commander Blake's words were measured and serious as he explained that this was not just about physical strength, but about mental resilience, teamwork, and the ability to perform under extreme pressure. Sarah listened intently, taking notes and absorbing every detail. She'd studied the program extensively, reading accounts from former candidates and analyzing the specific skills that would be tested. Her preparation had been meticulous, from specialized physical training to mental conditioning exercises designed to build resilience under stress. When the briefing concluded, candidates were directed to the equipment station to receive their initial gear and schedule their first round of assessments. As Sarah stood to leave, she noticed several of the SEAL instructors watching her carefully. Their expressions were unreadable, professional masks that revealed nothing about their thoughts or expectations. The equipment station was organized chaos, with candidates receiving everything from uniforms to specialized training gear. Sarah approached each station methodically, checking and double-checking every item against the provided checklist. Her attention to detail was noticed by Staff Sergeant Williams, a grizzled instructor who had seen hundreds of hopeful candidates pass through these same stations. As she completed the equipment check, Sarah overheard a conversation between two SEAL candidates who had been watching her throughout the morning. Their comments were not directly hostile, but the skepticism was clear. They questioned whether someone with her physical limitations could handle the demanding water operations, the long-distance runs, and the carrying of heavy equipment that were fundamental to SEAL training. The first phase of training would begin the following morning at 500 hours with a baseline fitness assessment. Sarah knew this would be her first real opportunity to demonstrate that her capabilities extended far beyond what her slight limp might suggest. She had trained for this moment for months, adapting her techniques and building strength in ways that would compensate for any physical limitations. That evening, Sarah sat in her temporary quarters reviewing her training notes and mentally preparing for the challenges ahead. She thought about her father's words from their last conversation before she left for California. He had reminded her that the military was not just about individual achievement, but about proving that dedication and character could overcome any obstacle. Tomorrow would be the first test of whether that philosophy could withstand the harsh realities of special operations training. The alarm sounded at 04:30 hours, jolting candidates from their brief sleep. Sarah had been awake for 20 minutes already, using the quiet time to perform her morning mobility routine and prepare mentally for the day ahead. The physical fitness assessment would include running, swimming, calisthenics, and obstacle courses designed to test every aspect of physical capability. Petty Officer Martinez, one of the SEAL instructors, gathered the candidates on the beach as dawn broke over the Pacific Ocean. The morning air was crisp and salty, carrying the sounds of crashing waves that would become a constant backdrop to their training. Martinez explained the assessment protocol with clinical precision, emphasizing that this baseline would determine individual training modifications and identify those who might need additional preparation. The first event was a 4-mile run along the beach, designed to test endurance and mental toughness on the unforgiving sand surface. Sarah positioned herself in the middle of the pack, knowing that starting too aggressively could aggravate her leg and compromise her performance in later events. The soft sand made every step more challenging, requiring additional strength and balance that would have been difficult even without her previous injury. As the group began running, Sarah found her rhythm quickly. Months of specialized training had taught her to distribute weight differently, using her core strength and right leg to compensate for the titanium rod in her left femur. Her gait looked slightly unusual, but her pace was steady and her breathing controlled. Several candidates who had started ahead of her began falling back as the distance wore on. Behind her, she could hear the conversation of two SEAL candidates who had been particularly vocal about their doubts the previous day. They were discussing whether she would be able to complete the distance, speculating about when she might drop out or request medical assistance. Their comments were not malicious, but they reflected a genuine uncertainty about whether current military standards were appropriately inclusive or potentially dangerous. By the 2-mile mark, Sarah had moved into the top third of the group. Her training had focused heavily on endurance and pacing, skills that were proving valuable as other candidates began to struggle with the demanding beach terrain. The instructors ran alongside the group, observing technique and noting those who maintained good form under stress versus those who began to break down as fatigue set in. Staff Sergeant Williams, who had noticed Sarah's attention to detail during equipment distribution, found himself running near her position. He observed her modified running style with professional interest, noting how she had adapted her technique to maintain efficiency despite her physical limitations. Her form was unconventional but effective, and her mental focus was evident in her controlled breathing and steady pace. The 3rd mile brought increased challenges as the course moved from packed sand to softer dunes that required more demanding footwork. Several candidates began to fall significantly behind, and 2 requested medical checks for various minor injuries. Sarah maintained her position, though she could feel the increased stress on her leg as the terrain became more demanding. As they approached the final mile, the group had spread out considerably. Sarah found herself running alongside Marcus Thompson, a former Army Ranger whose reputation for physical excellence was well known among the candidates. Thompson had initially been skeptical about her presence in the program, but he was beginning to appreciate her obvious preparation and determination. Their conversation during the final mile was brief but significant. Thompson asked about her training methods and recovery strategies, genuinely curious about how she had adapted her preparation for the unique demands of special operations training. Sarah shared some of her techniques for building strength around limitations, and Thompson found himself impressed by the depth of her analysis and preparation. The swimming assessment followed immediately after the run, designed to test candidates' ability to transition between demanding physical activities without recovery time. The pool complex was Olympic-sized and maintained at a challenging temperature that would test both technique and mental toughness. Sarah's swimming had always been strong, and the water-based exercises actually provided some relief for her leg. The required distance was 500 meters of combat sidestroke, a technique specifically designed for military operations that emphasized efficiency and stealth over speed. Sarah's form was excellent, her technique polished through months of practice in base pools across the country. She completed the distance in the top quarter of the group, surprising several instructors who had been uncertain about her aquatic capabilities. During the calisthenics portion, Sarah's upper body strength became evident. Her preparation had included extensive work on pull-ups, push-ups, and core exercises, designed to compensate for any limitations in her lower body. When the instructor called for maximum pull-ups, Sarah completed 18 repetitions with controlled form, placing her in the top 10% of all candidates. The obstacle course was the most challenging component of the assessment, requiring climbing, crawling, jumping, and carrying heavy objects across varied terrain. Sarah approached each obstacle methodically, using technique and strategy to overcome elements that might have been more difficult due to her leg. Her climbing skills were exceptional, and her problem-solving approach impressed the observing instructors. At one particularly challenging obstacle involving rope climbing and wall traversal, Sarah found herself working alongside several of the SEAL candidates who had been most skeptical about her abilities. As they struggled with the technical aspects of the challenge, Sarah demonstrated techniques she had developed during her recovery period, showing them how to use leverage and body positioning to overcome physical limitations. The final assessment component involved team exercises designed to test leadership and cooperation under stress. Candidates were divided into small groups and given complex problems that required both physical execution and strategic thinking. Sarah's group included Thompson and two of the SEAL candidates who had been questioning her presence in the program. Their assigned task involved moving heavy equipment across a simulated combat zone while maintaining communication and adapting to changing scenarios presented by the instructors. Sarah's strategic thinking and ability to remain calm under pressure quickly became apparent to her teammates. When equipment failures and time pressures threatened their mission success, her analytical approach and clear communication helped the team adapt and ultimately succeed. By the end of the assessment day, the dynamic among the candidates had begun to shift. Sarah's performance had been solid across all categories, and her obvious preparation and professionalism had earned respect from both instructors and fellow candidates. The initial skepticism remained among some, but it was now mixed with genuine curiosity about her capabilities and training methods. That evening, results were posted showing each candidate's performance relative to program standards and peer rankings. Sarah's overall score placed her in the top 20% of the class, a result that surprised some, but validated her months of specialized preparation. The announcement board drew crowds of candidates analyzing their own performance and that of their competitors. As Sarah reviewed her results, she was approached by Instructor Martinez, who had observed her performance throughout the day. His feedback was professional and direct, acknowledging her strong showing while noting areas for continued focus. He mentioned that her strategic thinking and team cooperation had been particularly impressive, qualities that were essential for special operations success. 3 weeks into the program, the initial assessments had given way to increasingly complex training scenarios that tested every aspect of special operations capability. Sarah's consistent performance had begun to shift the attitudes of both instructors and fellow candidates, though some remained skeptical about her long-term prospects in the demanding program. The morning briefing announced a new phase of training focused on combat swimming and underwater operations. skills that were fundamental to Navy SEAL capabilities. The training would take place in both controlled pool environments and the open ocean, where unpredictable conditions would test both technique and mental resilience under stress. Instructor Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, a 20-year SEAL veteran with extensive combat experience, outlined the requirements with characteristic directness. The training would include long-distance underwater swimming, equipment recovery in challenging conditions, and simulated combat scenarios that required precise timing and flawless execution. Failure rates in this phase were historically high, and several candidates from previous classes had been removed from the program during these exercises. Sarah had prepared extensively for this phase, working with former Navy divers during her recovery period to develop techniques that would maximize her efficiency in the water. Her swimming stroke had been refined through hundreds of hours of practice, and her underwater endurance had been built through specialized breath control and conditioning exercises. The first exercise involved swimming 1,000 meters in full combat gear, including boots, uniform, and a weighted pack designed to simulate operational equipment. The candidates entered the water in groups of 6, with safety divers positioned throughout the course to monitor progress and respond to any emergencies. As Sarah entered the cool Pacific water, she felt the familiar sensation of her body adapting to the aquatic environment. The additional weight of the gear required modifications to her stroke technique, but her preparation had anticipated these challenges. She settled into a rhythm that would allow her to maintain steady progress without exhausting herself before the distance was complete. Swimming alongside her was Kevin Morrison, a current SEAL team member who was participating in advanced training modules. Morrison had initially been among the most vocal skeptics about Sarah's place in the program, questioning whether accommodations for her injury might compromise operational effectiveness. However, her consistent performance had begun to earn his professional attention. As they progressed through the course, Morrison found himself impressed by Sarah's technique and endurance. Her modified stroke was actually more efficient than his own in the heavy gear, and her pacing strategy was clearly the result of careful analysis and preparation. When they reached the halfway point, she was maintaining position in the top quarter of the group, despite the additional challenges posed by her. Like the underwater navigation exercise required candidates to swim beneath the surface for extended distances while maintaining precise directional control. This skill was essential for covert operations where surface visibility could compromise mission security. Sarah's preparation included extensive work with former submarine personnel who had taught her techniques for underwater orientation and breath management. During the exercise, Sarah demonstrated remarkable underwater endurance and navigation accuracy. Her route was nearly perfect, and her surface time was minimal compared to many candidates who had to surface multiple times to reorient themselves. Chief Rodriguez, observing from a safety boat, noted her performance with professional interest. The complexity increased with night operations that required swimming in complete darkness while maintaining team coordination and mission timing. These exercises tested not only individual capability, but also trust and communication among team members. Sarah's group included Morrison and 2 other experienced operators who had initially been uncertain about her capabilities. As the team prepared for their night insertion simulation, Morrison found himself relying on Sarah's analytical approach to mission planning. Her preparation had included studying tidal patterns, current flows, and optimal approach routes that demonstrated a level of tactical thinking that impressed her teammates. When equipment problems threatened their mission timeline, her quick problem-solving helped the team adapt and succeed. The most challenging exercise involved underwater equipment recovery in simulated combat conditions. Candidates had to locate and retrieve specific items from the ocean floor, while under time pressure and dealing with deliberately created stress factors. The exercise was designed to test performance under the kind of pressure they might face in actual operations. Sarah's approach to this challenge demonstrated the strategic thinking that had become her signature throughout the program. While other candidates rushed to begin searching immediately, she spent the first few minutes analyzing the search area and developing a systematic approach that would maximize efficiency. Her method proved highly effective, and she completed the recovery ahead of most other candidates. Following the water operations, the program moved to land-based tactical exercises that required long-distance movement with heavy equipment. These challenges were specifically designed to test the kind of endurance and load-bearing capability that were essential for special operations missions in various environments. The exercise began with a 12-mile movement across varied terrain while carrying 60 pounds of equipment. Sarah had developed specific techniques for load distribution that minimized stress on her leg while maintaining operational capability. Her pack configuration and movement techniques had been refined through months of practice and consultation with physical therapists who specialized in military applications. During the movement, Sarah found herself part of a team that included several of the most capable candidates in the program. Their mission required not only completing the distance within time limits, but also maintaining equipment readiness and team cohesion throughout the challenge. The terrain included rocky hills, dense vegetation, and stream crossings that tested every aspect of tactical movement. As the team progressed, Sarah's navigation skills and tactical awareness became increasingly valuable to the group's success. Her preparation had included extensive study of map reading, compass navigation, and terrain analysis that proved essential when GPS equipment was deliberately disabled as part of the exercise scenario. At the 8-mile checkpoint, the team encountered a simulated casualty evacuation scenario that required rapid decision-making and coordinated response. Sarah's medical training, enhanced during her own recovery period, made her the natural choice to assess and treat the simulated injuries while the team prepared for evacuation procedures. Her performance during the medical scenario impressed even the most skeptical observers. Her knowledge was current and comprehensive, her decision-making was quick and sound, and her ability to maintain calm under pressure was evident to everyone involved. The exercise concluded successfully, with the team completing both the movement and casualty evacuation within the required time parameters. That evening, during the informal debriefing sessions that had become routine among the candidates, conversations began to focus more on Sarah's capabilities than her limitations. Morrison, who had become something of a spokesman for the skeptical faction, found himself defending her performance to others who still questioned whether standards were being maintained. The shift in attitude was gradual, but unmistakable. Candidates who had initially focused on her crutches and leg injury were now discussing her navigation skills, her medical knowledge, and her strategic thinking. The conversation had moved from whether she belonged in the program to how her unique preparation and perspective might enhance team capabilities. Chief Rodriguez, reviewing performance evaluations from the week's exercises, noted that Sarah's scores were consistently in the top tier across multiple categories. Her technical skills were excellent, her tactical thinking was sophisticated, and her ability to perform under pressure had been demonstrated repeatedly. More importantly, her presence had begun to elevate the performance of other candidates who found themselves working harder to match her level of preparation and professionalism. Week 6 brought the program's most demanding phase, designed to push candidates beyond their perceived limits and identify those with the mental resilience required for special operations. The exercise was known as Hell Week among military personnel, 5 days of continuous training with minimal sleep and maximum stress that had broken countless capable soldiers throughout the program's history. Sarah understood that this phase would be her ultimate test. The physical demands would be extreme, but the mental challenges would be even more significant. She had spent months preparing not just her body, but her mind for the sustained pressure and sleep deprivation that would define the next 5 days. The phase began at midnight, with sirens and instructors shouting commands that sent candidates scrambling from their bunks into the cool night air. Sarah moved quickly but deliberately, her movements economical and precise despite the sudden awakening. Months of military training had prepared her for abrupt transitions from rest to action, and her response was automatic and efficient. The first exercise involved boat teams carrying heavy inflatable boats across several miles of beach while instructors created additional stress through constant commands, time pressure, and deliberately confusing directions. Sarah's team included Morrison and several other candidates who had become accustomed to her analytical approach to problem solving. As the team struggled with the awkward weight and bulk of the boats, Sarah suggested modifications to their carrying technique that would distribute the load more efficiently. Her approach was based on biomechanical principles she had learned during her rehabilitation, and the improved technique allowed her team to maintain better pace than several others. The second day brought underwater demolition exercises that required precise timing and coordination under extreme stress. Candidates had to work with explosive, devices in underwater environments while dealing with equipment, failures and constantly changing scenarios designed to test their ability to adapt under pressure. Sarah's performance during these exercises was exceptional. Her preparation had included extensive study of underwater demolition techniques, and her calm demeanor under pressure allowed her to think clearly when other candidates were struggling with stress and fatigue. When equipment malfunctions threatened her team's mission, her quick analysis and alternative approaches kept them on track. By the third day, sleep deprivation and physical exhaustion had begun to affect all candidates significantly. Several had already withdrawn from the program, unable to maintain the required performance standards under the sustained stress. Sarah could feel the fatigue affecting her judgment and reaction time, but her mental conditioning helped her maintain focus on essential tasks. The day's primary exercise involved a complex infiltration scenario that required teams to move undetected across several miles of varied terrain while carrying sensitive equipment and maintaining communication protocols. The exercise was designed to simulate the kind of extended operations that Special Forces units might face in hostile environments. Sarah's team found themselves dealing with equipment failures, navigation challenges, and time pressures that pushed everyone to their limits. When their primary communication equipment failed, Sarah's knowledge of backup procedures and improvised communication methods kept the team connected to command and control. Her leadership during the crisis impressed even the most experienced candidates. During a brief rest period, Morrison approached Sarah with something approaching admiration. He acknowledged that his initial skepticism had been based on assumptions rather than evidence, and that her performance throughout the program had consistently exceeded his expectations. Their conversation was interrupted by instructors calling for the next phase of training, but the exchange marked a significant shift in attitudes among the SEAL candidates. The fourth day brought the program's most physically demanding challenges, including extended swimming in rough ocean conditions, obstacle courses with time penalties for errors, and load-carrying exercises that tested the limits of human endurance. Sarah's preparation and adapted techniques were put to their ultimate test as fatigue and stress accumulated. During the ocean swimming exercise, Sarah found herself struggling more than usual as the titanium rod in her leg began to cause discomfort after days of continuous use. The cold water and rough conditions made every stroke more difficult, and she could feel herself falling behind the pace she had maintained throughout the program. Morrison, swimming nearby, noticed her difficulty and moved closer to provide support and encouragement. His assistance was subtle and professional, designed to help her maintain position without drawing attention from instructors who might interpret the situation as inability to meet standards. Their teamwork demonstrated the kind of mutual support that was essential for special operations success. The obstacle course that followed was a nightmare of rope climbs, wall traversals, and crawling exercises that required maximum effort from exhausted candidates. Sarah's technique remained sound, but her speed had decreased noticeably as fatigue and discomfort accumulated. She completed every obstacle successfully, but her times were slower than her previous performances. Chief Rodriguez observed her struggle with professional interest. He could see that she was pushing through significant discomfort, and her determination was evident in every movement. When she completed the course within acceptable time limits despite her obvious difficulty, he made notes in her evaluation file that would later prove significant. The final night of Hell Week brought the most complex scenario of the entire program, a simulated hostage rescue that required precise coordination among multiple teams under extreme time pressure. Sarah's team was assigned a critical support role that required technical expertise and flawless execution under stress. As the exercise began, Sarah found herself drawing on every aspect of her training and preparation. Her medical knowledge was essential for casualty assessment, her navigation skills were crucial for route planning, and her strategic thinking helped the team adapt when the scenario parameters changed unexpectedly. The mission climax required her team to provide covering fire while the primary assault team moved into position. Sarah's marksmanship skills, honed through months of practice, proved exceptional under stress. Her shot placement was precise, and her tactical awareness helped identify threats that other team members had missed. When the exercise concluded successfully, the exhausted candidates gathered for debriefing and evaluation. Sarah's performance throughout the 5 days had been consistently strong, despite the obvious physical challenges posed by her leg injury. Her tactical contributions had been significant, and her mental resilience had impressed instructors and candidates. Like Chief Rodriguez addressed the surviving candidates with words that carried special meaning for Sarah. He acknowledged that special operations required not just physical capability, but mental toughness, strategic thinking, and the ability to perform under extreme pressure. He noted that some of the most valuable operators he had known had been those who brought unique perspectives and problem-solving approaches to challenging situations. As the formal evaluation period began, Sarah knew that her performance during Hell Week would largely determine her future in the program. She had pushed through significant physical discomfort and had maintained her contribution to team success despite obvious limitations. The question now was whether her demonstrated capabilities would be considered sufficient for advancement to the final phase of training. The conversations among other candidates had shifted dramatically over the course of the week. Those who had initially questioned her presence were now discussing her contributions and the value of her analytical approach to problem-solving. Morrison had become something of an advocate, pointing out specific instances where her preparation and thinking had benefited the entire team. That night, as candidates finally had an opportunity for extended rest, Sarah reflected on the week's challenges and her performance under extreme stress. She had proven to herself and others that determination and preparation could overcome significant obstacles. But she also recognized that even greater challenges lay ahead if she was selected to continue in the program. 2 days after Hell Week concluded, candidates were summoned to an unexpected assembly in the main briefing auditorium. The call came without warning during what should have been a recovery period, and the formal tone of the announcement suggested something significant was about to occur. Sarah joined the other survivors, noting that their numbers had decreased substantially over the course of the program. As candidates filed into the auditorium, Sarah noticed an unusual level of activity among the instructional staff. Chief Rodriguez and several other senior personnel were present, but there were also individuals she didn't recognize wearing dress uniforms that suggested high-ranking visitors. The atmosphere was formal and charged with anticipation that made everyone wonder what was coming next. Lieutenant Commander Blake entered the auditorium with his characteristic precision, followed by a group of officers whose insignia indicated ranks far above the typical instructional staff. Sarah recognized the distinctive stars of general officer rank among the group, though she couldn't immediately identify the specific individuals from her position in the middle of the assembled candidates. Commander Blake called the group to attention with unusual formality, his voice carrying the weight of an announcement that would clearly be significant for everyone present. He began by acknowledging the exceptional performance of the candidates who had survived to this point in the program, noting that their dedication and capabilities represented the highest standards of military service. The commander then introduced their distinguished visitors, including several high-ranking officers from different service branches who had come to observe the final phases of training and meet with candidates who showed exceptional promise for special operations assignments. The presence of such senior leadership indicated that this visit was far from routine. Among the introduced officers was Lieutenant General Patricia Hawkins, a 3-star general whose career in special operations and military intelligence was legendary throughout the armed forces. General Hawkins had commanded special operations units in multiple combat theaters and was widely respected for her tactical expertise and leadership under extreme conditions. General Hawkins stepped forward to address the candidates. Sarah noticed something that made her heart skip a beat. The general walked with a slight but unmistakable limp, and leaning against the podium was a military-issued crutch that she clearly relied upon for support during extended standing. The sight sent a shock of recognition through Sarah's system. General Hawkins began her remarks by discussing the evolution of special operations and the changing nature of modern military challenges that required diverse skills and perspectives. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had led troops in combat and made life-and-death decisions under extreme pressure. The candidates listened with rapt attention to every word. The general's speech took an unexpected turn as she began, discussing her own career path and the challenges she had faced as both a woman and later as someone dealing with physical limitations resulting from combat injuries. She described an IED explosion in Afghanistan that had shattered her leg and initially threatened to end her military career. Sarah found herself holding her breath as General Hawkins continued, describing the months of rehabilitation, and the doubts expressed by some about whether she could continue in demanding special operations roles. The parallel to Sarah's own situation was unmistakable, and she could feel the attention of other candidates beginning to shift in her direction. General Hawkins reached for her crutch and held it up for the assembled candidates to see clearly. She explained that the device had become a symbol not of limitation, but of adaptation and determination. Her subsequent promotions and successful command positions had proven that leadership and tactical excellence were not dependent on perfect physical condition. The general's words carried special weight as she discussed the importance of mental resilience, strategic thinking, and the ability to inspire others to exceed their own perceived limitations. She noted that some of the most effective special operations personnel she had worked with had been those who brought unique perspectives and problem-solving approaches, developed through overcoming significant challenges. As General Hawkins concluded her formal remarks, she made an announcement that surprised everyone present. She stated that she had been following the progress of this particular class with special interest, and that several candidates had demonstrated exceptional potential for advanced special operations assignments. The general then did something unprecedented in the program's history. She called Sarah forward by name, asking her to join her at the front of the auditorium. Sarah rose from her seat with a mixture of pride and nervousness, her slight limp more noticeable as she walked the length of the room while every eye followed her progress. Standing beside General Hawkins, Sarah felt the weight of representing not just herself, but everyone who had ever been told that physical limitations should define their possibilities. The general placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder and addressed the assembled candidates with words that would be remembered long after the program concluded. General Hawkins spoke about excellence in military service and the importance of judging personnel based on their capabilities and contributions rather than their apparent limitations. She noted that Sarah's performance throughout the program had been consistently exceptional, demonstrating the kind of tactical thinking, leadership, and resilience that were essential for special operations success. The general then revealed that Sarah's instructors had recommended her for immediate advancement to the most elite level of special operations training, a program typically reserved for personnel with years of conventional special forces experience. Her performance had been so outstanding that the normal progression requirements were being waived in recognition of her exceptional potential. The announcement sent a shock through the assembled candidates. Morrison and several others who had initially been skeptical about Sarah's place in the program found themselves applauding enthusiastically, their respect earned through weeks of observing her performance under increasingly demanding conditions. General Hawkins continued by addressing the broader lesson of Sarah's success. She emphasized that military effectiveness was ultimately about mission accomplishment and the ability to overcome challenges through preparation, intelligence, and determination. Physical capability was important, but it was only one component of the complex skill set required for special operations success. As the assembly concluded, General Hawkins presented Sarah with a commendation recognizing her exceptional performance and potential for continued service in special operations roles. The document was signed by multiple senior officers and represented official recognition of her capabilities and future potential. The other candidates approached Sarah after the ceremony, offering congratulations and acknowledgement that her success had been earned through exceptional performance and dedication. Morrison was among the first to speak, apologizing for his initial skepticism and expressing admiration for her perseverance and capability throughout the program. Chief Rodriguez, who had observed Sarah's progress from the beginning, approached with words of professional respect and encouragement for her continued service. He noted that her success would likely inspire others to pursue special operations careers despite physical challenges, and that her contributions would enhance the capabilities of any unit fortunate enough to have her. As the formal ceremonies concluded and candidates began to disperse, Sarah found herself in conversation with General Hawkins about the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. The general offered mentorship and guidance for navigating the unique aspects of special operations careers while dealing with physical limitations that most personnel never faced. The day marked not just Sarah's personal triumph, but a broader recognition that military excellence could take many forms. Her success had proven that determination, preparation, and strategic thinking could overcome significant obstacles. and that diverse perspectives and capabilities enhanced rather than diminished special operations effectiveness. 6 months after the ceremony with General Hawkins, Sarah found herself deployed with an elite special operations unit, conducting sensitive missions in challenging environments around the world. Her integration into the team had been seamless, with her tactical expertise and analytical thinking quickly making her an indispensable member of complex operations. The unit's commanding officer, Colonel Martinez, had initially harbored private concerns about integrating someone with physical limitations into such demanding operational roles. However, Sarah's performance during training, exercises, and initial deployments had quickly eliminated any doubts about her capabilities and contributions to mission success. During a particularly challenging operation in mountainous terrain, Sarah's navigation expertise and strategic planning had proven crucial when primary communication systems failed and the team faced unexpected enemy contact. Her ability to remain calm under extreme pressure and develop alternative approaches had helped the unit complete its mission successfully, while minimizing risk to team members. Her teammates, initially unsure about working with someone who walked with a slight limp, had come to appreciate the unique perspectives and problem-solving approaches she brought to challenging situations. Staff Sergeant Johnson, a veteran operator with multiple combat deployments, often remarked that Sarah's analytical approach to mission planning had prevented several potential disasters through her careful attention to details that others might overlook. The breakthrough moment for team acceptance came during a hostage rescue simulation where Sarah's medical expertise and tactical thinking proved decisive. When the primary assault plan encountered unexpected complications, her rapid assessment of alternative approaches and ability to adapt under pressure allowed the team to achieve mission success within critical time constraints. Her reputation within the special operations community began to spread as word of her capabilities and contributions reached other units. Young soldiers with various physical challenges started requesting information about career paths in special operations, inspired by proof that excellence and determination could overcome apparent limitations. General Hawkins maintained regular contact with Sarah, serving as both mentor and advocate for expanding opportunities for personnel with diverse backgrounds and capabilities. Their conversations often focused on developing new training, methods, and evaluation criteria that would identify potential, rather than focusing solely on traditional physical standards. The impact of Sarah's success extended beyond her individual achievements to influence broader military policy discussions about inclusion and capability assessment. Senior leadership began examining whether current evaluation methods were adequately identifying the full range of skills needed for modern special operations missions. Colonel Martinez found himself frequently fielding requests from other commanders who wanted to understand how Sarah's unit had achieved such consistently high performance ratings. Her contributions to mission planning, tactical analysis, and team coordination had become integral to the unit's reputation for excellence and innovation. During a joint training exercise with international special forces units, Sarah's expertise in underwater operations and demolition techniques impressed Allied commanders who had heard about the American soldier who had overcome significant challenges to reach elite status. Her performance strengthened international relationships and demonstrated American military adaptability. The exercise involved complex multi-phase operations that required precise coordination between teams from different countries, with varying equipment and procedures. Sarah's ability to analyze these differences and develop integrated approaches helped the combined force achieve objectives that individual units might have struggled to accomplish alone. Morrison, who had become one of Sarah's strongest advocates within the SEAL community, often spoke about how working with her had changed his understanding of military effectiveness and team dynamics. His initial skepticism had been replaced by deep professional respect and appreciation for the value of diverse perspectives in special operations. Their professional relationship had evolved into genuine friendship, based on mutual respect and shared commitment to military excellence. Morrison frequently sought Sarah's input on tactical problems and strategic planning, recognizing that her analytical approach often identified solutions that others missed. As Sarah's first year in special operations concluded, Her performance evaluations consistently rated her in the top tier of personnel across multiple categories. Her tactical expertise, leadership potential, and ability to inspire others had marked her for rapid advancement and increased responsibilities. Within the special operations community, the annual award ceremony recognized Sarah's contributions with multiple commendations for tactical excellence, innovation in training methods, and positive impact on unit cohesion and effectiveness. General Hawkins presented several of the awards personally, noting that Sarah's success had opened doors for countless others who might have been overlooked under previous evaluation systems. Chief Rodriguez, who had observed Sarah's initial training and continued to follow her career progression, was invited to speak at the ceremony about the importance of recognizing potential in all its forms. His remarks emphasized that military strength came from the diverse capabilities and perspectives of exceptional individuals committed to service excellence. The ceremony concluded with an announcement that Sarah had been selected for advanced leadership training that would prepare her for command positions within special operations units. The selection was based purely on merit and potential, representing validation that her success was measured by the same standards applied to all elite personnel. In her acceptance remarks, Sarah acknowledged the teammates, instructors, and mentors who had supported her journey while recognizing that her individual success represented broader progress toward a military that valued capability and contribution above conventional expectations. Her words inspired both current personnel and future candidates who might face similar challenges. The final impact of Sarah's story extended far beyond her personal achievements to influence military culture and policy at the highest levels. Defense Department officials began reviewing recruitment and training standards to ensure that capable individuals were not excluded based on outdated assumptions about physical requirements. Training programs across all service branches started incorporating lessons learned from Sarah's success, developing new methods for identifying and developing diverse talents that enhanced overall military effectiveness. Her story became a case study in military academies and leadership schools as an example of how determination and excellence could overcome apparent obstacles. Years later, as Sarah advanced to senior leadership positions within special operations, she maintained the same analytical approach and commitment to excellence that had characterized her initial training. Her legacy was not just personal success but systemic change that expanded opportunities for future generations of military personnel. The young soldiers who sought her mentorship found someone who understood both the challenges of overcoming limitations and the satisfaction of achieving excellence through preparation and determination. Her guidance helped dozens of others navigate their own paths to special operations success, creating a multiplying effect that strengthened the entire military community. Sarah's story had proven that true military strength came not from uniformity, but from the diverse capabilities of exceptional individuals united by shared commitment to service and excellence. Her success had changed not just her own life, but the entire understanding of what was possible in military service.